I was tucking my hair behind my ear for the 5th time that morning. The same little spot that always pows out where the glasses sit. And I suddenly thought, why am I adjusting myself to fit the style when it should be the other way around? It wasn't dramatic, just that quiet realization that something wasn't working the way it used to. Not the hair, not the glasses, but the way the two seemed to pull in opposite directions. Like they were having a silent disagreement, one adding weight, the other trying to lift. And once you notice it, it's hard to unsee. I was reminded of that last week, at a luncheon. A woman leaned in and told me, with a perfectly straight face, that Raquel Welch had been doing her hair for years. She meant her wig, of course. It was a beautiful one. But what struck me wasn't the wig. It was the ease in her voice, the quiet confidence in choosing something that fit her rhythm now, without trying to rewind the clock. And that's really what today's conversation is about. Not about rules, not about anti-aging, but about how to choose a haircut that complements your glasses, supports the structure of your face, and helps you feel like you're self-confident, composed, and completely visible. If you believe, as I do, that style after 60 is less about impressing and more about expressing, I hope you'll consider subscribing. And stay with me until the end, because I'm going to show you one tiny trick I learned from a stylist that solves the most common haircut and glasses frustration. It's subtle, but it makes a world of difference. All right. Let's start with the frames themselves. When you put on a pair of glasses, you feel that familiar, slight weight on the bridge of your nose. But visually, you're doing something much more significant. You're drawing a line, a strong, horizontal line, right across the middle of your face. Now, there's nothing wrong with that line, but if your haircut is also adding width at the same level, or if it's heavy at the bottom, you might start to feel like everything's being pulled downward. That sense of drag isn't always obvious. Until one day, you glance in the mirror and think, why do I look so tired? A hairdresser I saw on a program once said something that stuck with me. The goal of a good haircut is to lift the eye. And that's the secret. When glasses draw the eye across, your hair should gently guide it up. The right haircut for women over 60 who wear glasses isn't about hiding, it's about redirecting, elevating, rebalancing. Style isn't magic, it's geometry. You're creating a soft, pleasing balance between the horizontal, your frames, and the vertical, your cut. When both elements work in harmony, the face opens up. That idea changed how I looked at everything. It made me realize some of the most flattering haircuts I've ever seen weren't bold or trendy. They just worked. Quietly, naturally, they created balance. They made space for the face again. So what does that look like in real life when your glasses and your haircut actually get along? Let me show you 3 real styles that do just that. My friend Brenda recently treated herself to new glasses. Bold, dark, tortoise, shell frames absolutely beautiful. But over coffee, she leaned in and said, I feel like I look strict. Her haircut at the time was a simple, one-length bob. Clean, solid, but paired with the new frames, it felt like too many straight lines all at once. There was no softness to balance the structure. And when you're wearing noticeable glasses, that can be the difference between elegant and sharp. What she needed was softness, not a reinvention. And that's the quiet power of a soft, layered bob. Picture a classic bob, ending just below the chin. But instead of a hard line wrapping all the way around, the front layers gently taper, framing the face and softening the jaw. A stylist might call it connecting the front to the back. I just call it breathing room. It's not choppy. It's not trendy. It's a soft edit. Enough movement to interrupt the harsh edge and enough lightness to balance the visual weight of the frames. When you wear glasses over 60, especially bold ones, your hairstyle shouldn't compete. It should support. And this haircut does just that. I always think of it like the difference between a heavy wool coat and a light cashmere wrap. One weighs you down, the other moves with you. Brenda's stylist didn't do anything drastic, just softened the corners, added a touch of texturizing around the face. That's all it took. And when she put on her glasses again, she looked like herself. Just lighter, clearer. If you're asking for this cut, avoid the word layers. It can still scare some stylists into shag territory. Instead, say, I'd like to soften the front and blend it gently into the shape. Sometimes the most flattering bob for women with glasses isn't the most dramatic, it's the most considerate. And as Brenda would tell you, sometimes all it takes is a few gentle lines to let your face come forward again. But what if soft isn't your style? What if you want something with a little edge and a lot of lift? Asterisk. Asterisk. Let's talk about the cut that surprised even me. Susan Tuesday Book Club Susan always had the kind of wit that landed just right, but when it came to her hair, she felt like she was disappearing. She wore delicate, wire-rimmed readers and often said, "My face feels fuller, but my hair feels flatter." She was afraid that a short haircut might make her look rounder, that going Pixie, especially with glasses, would shrink her face even more. But she was wrong. Delightfully so. When Susan finally made the leap to a modern Pixie with just enough texture and lift at the crown, it changed everything. It wasn't drastic, it was precise. The sides and back were clean and close, which immediately slimmed her profile. But the stylist left soft length at the top, enough to create gentle height and a bit of movement, and that's where the magic happened. Because glasses, especially lower set or rounded ones, tend to draw the eye across, creating width. The right Pixie, with just a bit of vertical shape, does the opposite. It lifts. This is why short hairstyles for women over 60 who wear glasses can be so powerful. Not because they hide age, but because they counterbalance. They bring back proportion. They open the face. And here's the secret benefit no one talks about. Our changing hair texture. You know that wiriness or coarseness that sneaks in with grey. It becomes your greatest ally in a Pixie. It gives shape, memory, and natural volume that lasts all day without product. Susan told me later, I thought I'd feel exposed, but instead I felt visible again. It's not a cut for everyone, but when it works beautifully. Still, what if you're someone who loves their length? What if your hair has always been part of your identity, and you're just looking for a way to make it feel lighter, more in sync with who you are now? Let's talk about that. Eleanor, sharp mind, warm laugh, always loved her long hair. It had been part of her for decades. But lately, with her bifocals on more often than not, she noticed something she couldn't quite name. Her one-length hair, still healthy, still beautiful, was starting to feel disconnected. It's like everything's pulling down, she told me one day. My glasses, my hair, my face, it's all going in the same direction. She didn't want to go short, not yet. But she didn't want to feel dragged down either. Her solution? A shoulder-length cut with soft face-framing layers. It was subtle, just enough shaping to create movement around the face. The stylist began the layers right around the cheekbone, tapering gently toward the ends. Nothing choppy, nothing drastic. And it worked. This kind of long hairstyle for women over 60 who wear glasses does two important things. It breaks the downward lines. Instead of the hair falling straight past the face, it moves with it, mirroring the cheekbones, softening the outline of the frames. It reconnects the whole look. The hair, the face, the glasses, they don't feel like separate elements anymore. They feel cohesive. That's the power of a thoughtful layer, not to add trend, but to add intention. Eleanor told me later that she felt like her hair finally belonged again. Not younger, not trendier, just right. And when she pushed it behind one ear, and the side of her glasses showed just enough, the whole look felt elegant, intelligent, quietly confident. So yes, you can keep your length. You can keep what feels like you. You just need to give it a little breathing room. But even the best haircut runs into one tiny problem, especially when glasses enter the picture. It shows up right here just behind your ear, and chances are you felt it. Let's fix that next. Let's talk about a spot no one ever mentions, but almost every woman who wears glasses feels. Right here, just above the ear, where the arm of your glasses meets your hair. You style your hair. It looks great. And then you slide your glasses on. And suddenly, there it is. A little puff. A shelf of hair pushed out awkwardly by the frame. Not dramatic enough to redo your whole style, but just enough to throw the whole shape off. It breaks the clean line. It draws the eye to exactly where you don't want it. And after a few hours, you feel it. That dull little pressure point behind your ear. It's the kind of small discomfort that doesn't ruin your day, but quietly wears on it. Most women think it's just part of the deal. Hair and glasses don't get along. But here's the thing. They can. You just need one tiny adjustment. Not a new haircut. Not a different pair of frames. Just this. Ask your stylist to lighten the weight right behind the ear. Not a visible layer. Just a soft touch of texturizing enough to give that little section room to breathe. To allow your hair to sit naturally behind or over your glasses without being forced out. This small trick makes your haircut and your glasses finally work together, not against each other. It's elegant, it's invisible, and it changes everything. Because when your haircut respects the presence of your glasses, the whole face softens, the whole you softens. And the best part? You'll feel it before you even see it. That quiet relief, no more tugging, no more fixing the same side over and over again. It's a reminder that good style isn't always loud. Sometimes it's in the smallest, smartest edits. And speaking of smart edits, let me tell you about a woman I once saw in the library. She understood this better than anyone. There's a woman I once saw at the library. I still remember her, like a snapshot tucked away in the mind. She had silver white hair, cut into a textured pixie that framed her high cheekbones just right. And her glasses' bold red frames rested proudly on her face like punctuation marks. Not loud, just certain. I remember the flash of that red as she looked up from the checkout desk. And what struck me wasn't just how stylish she looked. It was the ease, the absence of apology. She wasn't covering her grey. She wasn't hiding behind her frames. She had created a look, a signature look, with grey hair and glasses that felt completely her own. Not because it was perfect, but because it was intentional. And maybe that's the real lesson in all of this. The goal isn't to look younger, or sharper, or different. The goal is to make all these parts of your life, your hair, your glasses, your age, your story, feel like they belong together. Just like Brenda softened her bob. Just like Susan lifted her pixie. Just like Eleanor found movement in her length. You don't need a whole new you. Just a haircut that lets you be seen clearly, comfortably, confidently. If any part of today's video spoke to you, I'd love to hear your story. Maybe a time you found the right haircut, or the wrong one, or that moment in the mirror when you thought, something's changed, and I want my look to change with it. Feel free to share in the comments below. I always read them, and I always learn something. And if you're wondering what color works best with grey hair and bold frames, that's exactly what we're exploring next week. You might be surprised what it's not. So if you haven't already, I'd love for you to subscribe and join me. We're just getting started.